All these pieces were built over in 1867 over in Paris, France, and then they shipped it over here, and then they recreated what you see right in front of you. They lit it December 1st, 1870, and then they used this until August of 1975. So for 105 years, they used everything that we see right in front of us. And how they would get this to actually work is they would open the door of the front here, and what you have, if you guys want, come on in, we got a room for a few more. If you look in either sides or in the front, we have a clockwork mechanism in here. If you guys have used your grandfather clock or seen how a grandfather clock works, very similar to what's going on inside here. And what the keeper would do was simply open the front door, and there is a hand crank, and there's a peg where they put that crank, and you'd imagine the keeper would be standing here and rotating. And what's happening when they're rotating is all the wheels in there are moving, fans are spinning around, some weights are lifting up in there. It's all making the mechanism move. The other thing that's going on is there's a weight right over here by these folks. A little difficult for you guys to see, but imagine a 175-pound weight. When we move out of here, you can look over here and see it. But it's being lifted from the room below us and brought up to the top of the ceiling. And if you're over there, imagine there's a wheel above you and the weight being all the way up to there. Once the keeper has done this, and it takes a minute or so for them to crank that weight all the way up, then they just let it go. And the keeper doesn't need to hand crank this or move anything around for 2 hours and 20 minutes. During that 2 hours and 20 minutes, the counterweight does all the work. But every 2 hours and 20 minutes throughout the whole 105-year history of this light, there would be a keeper standing here bringing that 175-pound weight back up to the top. It's not like they're lifting the 175 pounds themselves. The mechanism is doing most of the work, so all of us in the room, not a problem. We'd be able to get this thing hand cranked around and bring it back up. It's remembering every 2 hours and 20 minutes. If they forgot or if they were waiting for it, the room down below us we call the watch room, they could see that weight right before it's going to hit the ground. And then come back up here, wheel that up. Now what's moving is everything above us. Everything from the brass chariot wheels upwards is slowly moving around. And there's 6,000 pounds of weight up above us, and it takes 2 minutes to make a complete rotation. What you have up there is a huge lens and a light. And what's going on when this is rotating around is you are creating a flash pattern for our lighthouse. Our lighthouse's flash pattern is once every 5 seconds. So if you're out on our ship, you'll be able to see Point Reyes Lighthouse every 5 seconds. Farallon Islands, they're out there about 20 miles. Theirs goes once every 15 seconds. Point Arena to the north, 2 quick flashes every 20 seconds. To the south, Point Bonita has 3 seconds on, 1 second off. And so, why they're all different patterns? Because if it's real foggy like it is right now, you want to know what lighthouse you're actually looking at. So you can open your map up and see, I'm looking at Point Reyes. Good, I'm looking at the right light. So, that's what's going on up above us. Now, what is all happening above, or what the mechanisms are above us are, one is, you have this huge lens. And this is the largest lens that they made for lighthouses. It's a first order Fresnel lens. Largest size or order of lens that they made. There's 7 different sizes or orders, and as they get smaller, you have a much smaller size lens that might have been used like on a light ship out in the entranceway to the San Francisco Bay. But big lights that need to be really bright, they would require that first order lens. There is a lot of pieces of glass up there. Does anybody have a guess on how many pieces of glass there is up there?
Too many.
There is 1,032 pieces of glass. There's 24 sections, 43 pieces of glass in each section. Center bullseye right in the middle, and the glass is bent, so it's reflecting or refracting the light and sending out a beam through each of those sections. And what you'd imagine is if it's not rotating, you would see beams on the building. If we open this up right now, or tonight when it got a little darker, you'd see beams on the building, beams on the rocks, beams going out to the water. Rotate it around, spinning that wagon wheel around, then it creates that flash pattern of once every 5 seconds. So that's what's going on above us here. Now, there's a gentleman in France who designs this lens, and it makes lighthouses be able to be seen at quite a distance, eventually about 25 miles out to sea. You can see the lighthouses. So a pretty amazing piece of work that Mr. Fresnel invents back in 1822. Before that, lighthouse is going to be seen about 8 to 12 miles on average. So he increases your light about doubles the distance of how far you can see lighthouses. The other thing above us is there is a light source. And that light source wasn't originally electricity, as you can imagine. There was no electrical lighthouses in 1870 here in the United States. First one doesn't come for another 16 years until 1886. But we didn't get electricity out here until 1939. So your original features for how the light was you had 4 candles up there, and they were burning pig's fat or pig's lard. And so you imagine the keeper had to trim the wicks to these candles, just as you guys do if you have a candle at home. You trim the wick so it doesn't create a lot of soot and smoke, because where's all that soot and smoke going to go? All over that 1,032 pieces of glass. And so then instead of getting more familiar with that glass, they would be trimming those wicks. So you may have heard early lighthouse keepers actually called wickies, doing so much of that and becoming very familiar with those candles. They did that for about 17 years, and then they switch over to kerosene, mineral oil, and eventually you would have seen an oil vapor lamp that would have been where the light fixture is today. And there would have been a little dome cover that came from where that hole is up above the light that would have been helping vent the fumes come off the oil, the vapor lamp and out of the lighthouse. So it becomes a little bit easier, although still having to change the kerosene probably on a daily basis. So it becomes a little bit easier. And then 1939 rolls around. United States Coast Guard takes over the operations of the lighthouses here in the United States, and they probably came down here and said, "Oh, you guys don't have electricity yet? Let's get electricity." So, ironically, that happens the same year? Probably not. But they put in power. Life gets a lot easier out here, so you have electricity until 1975 in this light. What you guys see up there is pretty much what it looked like in 1975. And what you have up there is 2,000 watt bulbs. One burns out, the other one goes on. If the power goes out here, usually happens when it gets over 60, 65 mile an hour winds here. So we lose our power out here. The last Coast Guard purchase for this lighthouse was actually a simple object that you guys may have used on a camping trip, a Coleman lantern. So they would put a Coleman lantern up on that pedestal, and that would be, yeah, come on in. And that would be what the backup device was if the power goes out in 1975. So pretty simple, from trimming wicks and burning pig's fat to being able to put a Coleman lantern up there. So pretty simple at the end. Now the other feature that you see up above us and a lot of people ask about is, what is that green curtain doing up there? What is that for? The curtain is simply a structure for safety features. What we have up here is a big magnifying glass in the sun. How many of you played with a magnifying glass in the sun? Yeah, so what happens? Burns real quick. So if we had this curtain open on a sunny day, like yesterday, or the day before, then we probably would be creating a lot of fires all over the place. So that is closed, and you can see some examples of what happens when the curtain is open. The curtain has been burned several times itself. So it happens really quickly. We've had staff up there that have been cleaning or maintaining the lens, had the curtain open too far, and got the smell their own clothes. So it happens real quick. So that's a safety feature that we have above us. The last feature I'd like to talk about is something you guys are hearing outside, and that would be the foghorn. The foghorn wasn't originally right up here by the lighthouse. It wasn't right back behind, nor in the building that they built over here in 1928. It was another 100 feet down on the rocks. So what you guys have to imagine is, you guys didn't have these nice stairs that you guys went up and or down today. You're going to go back up momentarily. And obviously take your time on the stairs because they're a little slick today. But the original stairs were wooden. And they went all the way down there, and the total count of stairs was over 900. So as you guys walk back up today, no complaining today. And when you start getting tired and thinking about this is not so fun, think about the lighthouse keeper and think about what they were doing, especially on a day like today. Imagine those wooden stairs, very, very slick. And imagine the first 40 years, these guys didn't even have handrails. So I think she's gonna move out, so step on in here for a moment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, you're welcome. And so no hand railing, probably climbing up the stairs some days when the winds are blowing 80, 90 mile an hour, top wind ever, 133 mile an hour out here. So today is fairly calm in comparison. But this This light was tough work for these guys to deal with. But not only did they have to go down to that original fog signal, you guys may have seen the water cistern at the top of the hill. They're trying to collect rainwater on days like today, bring it all the way down to that fog signal because it's running on steam power. The other thing they had to bring down there was coal. So you'd imagine these guys were lugging some sacks of coal, probably pushed it down. They created eventually some coal chutes, pushing it down there, pulling it, dragging it. Day like today, once again, not so fun. When they get down there, those guys have to shovel 140 pounds of coal per hour. So, their legs are fairly large, tree trunk-like from going up and down these stairs, and then they have some massive guns also because they got to do some shoveling. You think these guys stuck around here too long? No, this was probably one of the least popular lighthouses in lighthouse history. And these are the signs that I show are pretty good indicators. Only one guy was here over 20 years. Only one guy ran the ranks, going from the third assistant keeper to the principal keeper. And nobody ever left their lighthouse in the whole 105 years to come out and work at this lighthouse. So I say that's a pretty good sign this was not very popular. So this was the lighthouse that probably most avoided or didn't want to come out and work at. Now, what else happens is you're very remote out here. 45-minute drive you have to Point Reyes Station or Lima today. Imagine in 1870, it's a day-long trip by horse and carriage. I think a lot of people can convince families to come out here. You may have had some of the best dairy products in the Bay Area at the time, but pretty remote out here all the way out, and still fairly remote here today. So I'd say most of the keepers probably fit in this category of a picture that I'm looking for. The caption of the picture just says, "Second assistant keeper gone crazy, taken to Lima in 1882. So I say that was probably more likely the fate of most of these keepers. I'm imagining in this picture the guy is in a wooden cage and yelling and screaming and cursing this lighthouse as he's being taken out of here. So there's a little history of the light. If you guys would like to stick around, take pictures, ask questions, feel free to. Two things I recommend if you wait a moment while people are moving around and you want to see some of these features. There is a plaque on the back dedicated to the main builders of the light, Barbary and Ferneste. All of this built over in Paris in 1867, so a little plaque that's only be able to see on the backside. The other thing that's nice, if you move to the inside where these two gentlemen are, you can look up into the lens. A lot of people are wondering as I'm talking, how did the keeper get up into the light? And so there's a staircase up in the back and then a stair that leads into where the lens is and a great view of